Nobody saw it coming. One second he was standing on the sidewalk. The next, he stepped directly into the path of a speeding bus. But what happened in the moments before he stepped off that curb will change the way you think about everything. Marcus Webb was the kind of man nobody noticed. He woke up at 6:47 a.m. every single morning, not by alarm, but by habit. He made the same coffee, wore the same jacket, and walked the same route to work for 11 years without fail. Nobody on that street knew his name, and that invisibility was slowly killing him from the inside. 3 months earlier, Marcus had lost his job at the logistics company, where he'd given a decade of his life. No warning, no severance, just a cardboard box and a swipe card that stopped working at noon. He went home, sat on his couch, and didn't move for 6 hours. His wife, Elena, had left the year before that. His mother, the one person who always called, had passed in February. Marcus was carrying grief stacked on top of grief, and no one was watching him buckle. Despite everything, Marcus kept walking. Every morning at 8:15, he'd leave the apartment, cross Delancey Street, past the flower stand run by an old Korean woman named Mrs. Park, grab a coffee from the corner cart, and head toward the job recruitment center 6 blocks away. The routine was the only rope he had left to hold onto. Without it, he feared he'd simply float away. On a Tuesday in October, Marcus received 2 pieces of news before 8 a.m. The first, his apartment lease would not be renewed. He had 30 days to vacate. The second, a voicemail from his doctor's office, asking him to come in urgently to discuss his recent blood work. He stood in his kitchen, staring at his phone screen, and felt something inside him go completely quiet. Not peaceful. Quiet like a power outage. Like the world had just switched off. Marcus put the phone in his pocket, pulled on his jacket, and walked out of his apartment without his bag. He didn't lock the door behind him. He just walked. His feet carried him automatically, down the stairs, through the lobby, out into the cool October air. But something was different this time. His eyes weren't focused on anything ahead. They were turned inward, seeing something no one else on that street could see. Mrs. Park had been running her flower stand for 22 years. She had seen every kind of person walk by, the heartbroken, the elated, the lost, the found. She had a gift, one she never talked about. She could read a person's soul in the way they walked. When she saw Marcus that morning, she stopped arranging her roses mid-stem. Her hands went still. The way he moved, it wasn't right. She called out to him, but the traffic noise swallowed her voice whole. The intersection of Delancey and 5th was always chaos at 8:20 a.m. Taxis, bikes, buses, and delivery trucks competed for space in a horn-blaring symphony. Marcus reached the curb and stopped. The pedestrian signal was red. Around him, impatient commuters pressed forward at the edges. A businessman to his left was already inching into the street. Marcus stared at the red hand on the signal. Then he looked up, and his eyes locked onto something across the street. Across the street, taped to the lamppost, was a flyer. It was slightly torn at the corner, flapping in the October wind. He couldn't read it from here, but the image on it stopped him cold. It was a drawing, a child's crayon drawing of a man and a little girl, holding hands under a sun. And beneath it, in large marker letters, it said, "Thank you for saving her. We will never forget you." Marcus had no idea what it meant, but he felt something crack open in his chest. And then, without fully understanding why, Marcus stepped forward. He didn't look. He didn't check the light. His body moved before his mind gave permission, pulled toward that flyer like gravity. In that fraction of a second, 3 things happened simultaneously. The pedestrian signal turned green, a cyclist swerved hard to the left, and a number 12 city bus, running for seconds behind schedule, accelerated through the amber light. He never saw the bus, but he felt the hand. A firm, strong grip closed around his left forearm and yanked him backward with a force that took the breath out of him. His feet tangled. He stumbled. He fell hard against the curb as the number 12 roared past, close enough that the side mirror grazed his jacket sleeve, close enough that he felt the heat of the engine on his face. The crowd erupted in screams, and Marcus sat on the wet sidewalk, gasping, completely unable to understand what had just happened. He looked up, Standing over him was a man, tall, in a construction vest, with calloused hands and kind eyes. The man crouched down and said just 5 words. "You okay, brother? Stay with me." His voice was low and steady, the kind of voice that had clearly talked people off ledges before, metaphorical and perhaps otherwise. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. And then, for the first time in months, he started to cry. Right there, on the sidewalk, in front of everyone. The construction worker's name was Ray. Ray Okafor. He sat down on that curb with Marcus, right there in the chaos of the morning. And he didn't rush him. He didn't pull out a phone. He didn't call anyone. He just sat. When Marcus finally spoke, he told Ray everything. The job, Elena, his mother, the doctor's voicemail, the lease. He'd never said it all out loud in one go. It took 12 minutes. Ray listened to every single word. When Marcus finally finished talking, Ray was quiet for a moment. Then he pointed across the street at the flyer on the lamppost. "You see that?" Ray said. "I put that up 3 days ago." Marcus turned to look. Ray continued. 3 weeks back, I saw a man pull a little girl out of the path of a delivery truck right here. She would have been gone. I never got his name, but I found a drawing she made for him. Her dad sent it to me. I've been trying to find that man ever since." Marcus felt a cold wave wash over him. He remembered nothing of the kind. But Ray looked at him with certainty. "It was you," Ray said quietly. "I recognize your jacket," and then it hit him. 6 weeks ago, on a foggy morning he barely remembered. He'd been walking in a daze, as always when a girl, maybe 4 years old, in a yellow raincoat, had slipped off the curb. He'd grabbed her without thinking, automatic as breathing, and handed her back to a panicked young woman who'd sobbed thank you into his shoulder. He'd walked away and never thought of it again. That little girl had lived because of an impulse he'd forgotten completely. His numbness had hidden from him the fact that he still mattered. Marcus sat with that for a long time. Ray didn't fill the silence. The October sun had climbed higher. Pedestrian traffic had thinned. Somewhere nearby, the flower stand woman, Mrs. Park, had crossed the street and was standing a few feet away, watching, a single yellow rose held in her hand. She didn't say anything. She just placed the rose on the curb next to Marcus, gave his shoulder one short, firm squeeze, and walked back to her stand. That wordless act broke him open completely, and somehow rebuilt him at the same time. Ray walked Marcus to the doctor's office that morning. He waited outside for 2 hours. The blood work showed elevated cholesterol, serious, but treatable. Not the death sentence Marcus's mind had pre-built. Ray then drove Marcus to a community crisis center he volunteered at on weekends. Marcus walked in. He didn't walk back out for 4 hours. And when he did, he had 3 appointments scheduled, a crisis counselor's card in his pocket, and something unfamiliar warming in his chest. It felt something like hope. 6 months later, Marcus was not the same man who had stepped blindly toward a bus. He was in therapy, real therapy, weekly, hard. He had moved into a smaller apartment 2 neighborhoods over, and he had found part-time work at a youth community center, helping organize job training workshops. He saw Ray every other Saturday. He stopped at Mrs. Park's flower stand every Tuesday. And every week, he bought a yellow rose, not for himself, but for the reception desk at the crisis center, where someone might be sitting, like he once sat, needing to believe the world noticed them. Marcus Webb almost disappeared from this world on a Tuesday in October. Not because he was weak, because he was human, and he had been carrying too much alone, in silence, for too long. The bus didn't kill him, but the silence nearly did. If you are carrying something too heavy to hold right now, put it down long enough to say so. To one person, one Ray, one Mrs. Park. Because you saved someone once, even if you've already forgotten. And this world is not finished with you yet.